When Victor stepped out of that black SUV with his expensive cologne and city arrogance, he thought he was about to humiliate his ex-wife Grace in front of the entire neighborhood. He mocked her old windows, her worn slippers, her provincial life, until a second black SUV pulled up. Out stepped his daughter Claire, now a successful lawyer he didn't even recognize. What happened next in that small-town courtyard would shatter every assumption about success, failure, and who really made it in life. The neighbors watched in stunned silence as 15 years of abandonment, judgment, and quiet sacrifice collided in the most unexpected confrontation you'll ever witness. This is the story of how a mother's dignity became her greatest weapon, and why the people who mock your struggles often end up begging for your forgiveness. Like this video, if you've ever been through something like this in your own life. Okay, let's enjoy the story. Mornings in the small town started the same way. Yards came alive after the night. Rare cars hummed quietly as they warmed up. The bread van stopped at the store, and the warm scent of rolls seeped through windows. Grace woke before her alarm. That habit lingered from night shifts. She set the kettle on, spotted the glass of dill on the windowsill, a gift from the neighbor yesterday, and smiled. The frame really needed painting. She'd put off buying the paint since spring. There was always a more pressing expense. The yard held an early silence. Grace loved those 20 minutes between twilight and bustle. She sat by the window with her cup and listened to herself. Her heart beat steadily, her breathing free. So the day promised to be simple and clear. The intercom buzzed sharply, insistently. A voice said one word: open. The voice felt foreign and familiar at once. She pressed the button. The stairwell smelled of expensive cologne and something external, like a city's breath after rain. Victor stood at the threshold. He hadn't changed much. Gray eyes, groomed temples, shiny watch, a confident and cold smile. "Well, hello," he said. Grace nodded. He scanned the entryway, eyed the old frame, ran a finger along the sill. "Same as ever," he remarked with a smirk. "Provincial holy house. Old windows. The hostess in that same robe. You seem stuck. In the city, people live differently. You could at least replace the windows. And those slippers?" Grace silently grabbed a rag and wiped the glass. His words slid off like water on waterproof fabric. "Tea?" she asked calmly. He chuckled. "You're still the same. Tea? Eat? As if that replaces a real life. By the way, I was right back then. In the city, I lived like a man should, looked at myself, without pity. And you? You didn't break out?" He emphasized the last word, like grading an exam. Grace didn't argue. With Victor, arguments turned into useless circles. He believed only himself. 15 years ago, he'd tossed his bag in the hall and said, "I'm leaving. Tired of living poor. Want a real life." Back then, Claire was asleep in the next room, hugging her plush bunny. The next day, Grace neatly packed his jacket in a bag and set it by the door. Then she called the hospital and took an extra shift. Life had to go on. "Why are you here?" she asked now. "Business," he replied. "And to see the past. Maybe help. I can now." He said it with his usual smug tone. Grace suggested they step into the yard for fresh air. Conversations were easier there. The yard greeted them with clear September light. Neighbors sat on the bench. Hank the auto mechanic with his reliable hands nearby. Kids chased a ball. A crow dragged a bread crust to the swing's crossbar. "Oh, Grace guests," they called. Victor turned, smiled to flash his teeth. "Grace and I are old acquaintances," he said. Husband, Grace clarified shortly. X. The neighbors exchanged glances. In their yard, X's always returned with pleas or tales of others' success. Victor was warming up. "In the city, I learned how to live," he said loudly. "And you here, in this boredom? You, Grace, everything's the same. No fur coat, no decent shoes. Who'd settle for that? No wonder you're alone." His words flew low and stung. Kids quieted. The ball rolled to the curb. Hank adjusted his cigarette but didn't light it. Grace stood straight, like at a procedure table she didn't sway. Inside, no anger, just the odd calm of someone who leaned on facts. She was about to end the talk when a black SUV pulled into the yard quietly. It stopped at the third entrance. The door opened, and Claire stepped out tall, composed, in a dark blue suit, hair in a neat ponytail, folder and bag in hand. She scanned the yard, smiled, and walked to her mother. "Mom, hi," she said. "Meeting canceled? I came early. How are you?" Grace felt her lungs expand. "Good," she replied. "Come in." Victor stared at Claire with a bewildered look. For a second, he lost his grip on the scene. "Claire," he said softly. She turned. "Hello, Dad," she said calmly. No reproach, no delight in her voice. On the bench, whispers, "That's the lawyer, the one who pushed through the roof repair and got the tiles changed in the second entrance." Victor eyed the car, suit, folder again. "So, lawyer," he said, "where do you work? Here or in the capital?" "Capital," Claire replied. "Often in the region. We have a branch. Here for a couple hours with Mom today, hearing tomorrow." "Not bad," Victor said. "From rags to riches while Mom's still here." He nodded at the peeling wall and old frame. Claire turned to him, looked straight. "Mom's good here," she said. "Her people, her work, her choice. I live where my job demands. We see each other often." Victor smirked. "She complained everything's expensive. Old windows, no money. And you've got an SUV. Could help your mother if you're so successful." Claire glanced at Grace. She shook her head slightly, no need to justify. But Claire answered, "Because facts trump impressions. Mom bought the new house on mortgage in her name," she said. "I covered the down payment. I handle installments when I can. Windows ordered a week ago, just not delivered yet." Victor looked at the neighbors, raised his voice. "See, Grace, how it goes. You, with your poverty all your life," daughter breaks out. "That's my genes, you could say." The yard hissed like a pot on high heat. Hank snorted. Claire smiled briefly, very calmly. "Genes didn't drive me to classes with a fever," she said. "Genes didn't get up at 4 a.m. for shifts. Genes didn't sit nights over homework or bus me when train fare was short. Mom did. Sorry to say it aloud, but it's important." Grace felt gratitude and slight awkwardness. She disliked talks about herself. Preferred doing over telling. Victor tried to retort. Claire raised a palm. "I'm glad you came," she said softer. "Really? But your way of talking about others' lives sounds like mockery. You left for a rich life. Good luck. Just don't laugh at what others grew on. Here, people learn patience and care. Sometimes that's worth more than flashy signs." The yard filled with clarity. Neighbors exchanged smiles with Grace. Kids noisied up again. Victor dropped his gaze, clicked his watch strap, went silent. As if hearing the familiar yard without his commentary for the first time in years. "Fine," he said finally. "Won't bother." "We saw," Grace replied. "Thanks." He walked to his car with slightly slumped shoulders. Hank rubbed his palms, wanted to smoke again, thought better. Neighbors loosened up. Someone asked Claire to check a fine paper. Another about the management company. Claire said she'd stop for tea and sort it step by step. Grace called everyone to the kitchen, set out cabbage pie, lingonberry jam, pickled cucumbers. Neighbors brought what they could. The kitchen got crowded and warm. Claire brewed tea, quickly sorted her folder, made notes. Grace washed apples, meanwhile, listening as her daughter calmly broke down tasks. First, statement to traffic police for Victor. No, for Vic. Wait first, for Vic. Then heating letters for Dorothy Hayes. Then complaint to management. "Thanks for coming," Grace said when they crossed at the stove alone. "I'd manage, just sometimes hate clenching my jaw." "It's fine," Claire replied. "He talks loud. We do quiet. Sometimes quiet convinces more." After tea, Claire sat at her laptop. Hank hovered over her shoulder, studying how to draft an appeal. "Write in your words," Claire said. "Don't fear periods, they discipline. Chronology for facts, no frills." Hank nodded, repeated to himself. Dorothy Hayes dug in her bag for old receipts, winced in shame. "No shame," Grace told her. "Shame's in deceit. Asking help's no shame." Neighbors perked up. Talk turned practical. Everyone had questions. By evening, folks dispersed. Grace and Claire alone in the apartment. "Heading out tonight?" Grace asked. "Staying till morning," Claire said. "Mind?" "Thrilled," Grace replied. They washed dishes, sat on the couch. Suddenly, a short beep from below. Victor stood in the yard, gazing cautiously at windows. "Grace, a minute?" he called. Grace went down. Claire followed. Victor handed a bag from the hardware store. Inside, window putty and plastic corners. "Not charity," he explained. "You'll use it." "Thanks," Grace said. "For the balcony." "Not about windows," he said. "I said too much this morning. Sorry. Thought everything froze here. Turns out I missed a lot." He looked at Claire. "No need for a ride to the station tomorrow," she replied. "Work car's coming." "Thanks." Victor smiled awkwardly. "Good. Maybe see you Sunday in the city. Got a free hour." "Text an hour ahead," Claire said. "Till then." They stood in the dim yard. September, air cool and clean. Victor looked up at the window, said a simple phrase, "You're great." Grace said nothing, just nodded. He left slower than daytime. His steps gained care, like understanding the asphalt better. That evening, Grace and Claire removed the frame, started fixing the old sash. Worked silently, but their shared task hummed like familiar music. "Remember teaching me soup from what's on hand?" Claire asked. "Not from nothing," Grace laughed. "Potato, onion, bay leaf. Love what you do, flavor comes." "Seems that was the main lesson," Claire said thoughtfully. "Make something real from little." "We did," Grace replied. Late night, Grace woke, went to the kitchen. Claire slept on the couch, her face childlike, without the business focus. Grace covered her with a blanket, sat nearby a minute. A warm wave of gratitude rose in her chest. She recalled herself at 30. Double shifts, teaching Claire to count, signing notebooks, cooking soup, no self-pity, gave up comparing her life to others. That choice saved her from disappointments and grudges. Morning turned sunny, a bit cool. Grace and Claire went to the yard. A work car stopped at the gate. Victor emerged from the corner with wildflowers. "For you both," he said. "Thanks," Grace replied. "Sunday at noon," he clarified. "Text an hour ahead," Claire repeated. "Will do," Victor promised. The car took Claire around the bend. Grace stood, thinking her life had shifted importantly. A stranger stopped judging. She stopped being stranger to herself. "How'd you hold all these years?" Victor asked when alone. "Could have broken." "No time to break," Grace replied, looked straight. "Had to live. Someone's sick, school's on, nights at work. No complaining at the world, no feeding grudges, strength comes." He nodded silently, then hugged awkwardly like embracing a familiar tree when realizing it outlasted you and your storms. Grace said calmly, "Let's go. My shift." "I'll walk you," he offered. "Can I?" "You can," she replied. A week later, new windows installed in the new house. White frames opened easy. Handles clicked softly. Glass gleamed clear. Ethel Green came to see, sighed joyfully. Beautiful, like a magazine. Claire helped peel protective film. Victor held the ladder. Hank passed tools, joking nonstop. Passersby stopped, nodded to Grace, smiled. Respect rang not in words, but silence that falls in a yard when people see work and don't interrupt. Claire came weekends. Sometimes met her dad in the city. They talked plays and weather, learning to talk without jabs or claims. He tried listening. She didn't rush. Small steps built a path needing more effort than loud declarations. Grace kept her rhythm. Shifts, home fixes, neighbor pleas, jam, morning air. She didn't pretend happiness looked like ads. Enough knowing she kept dignity. At 9 p.m., kettle boiled in the kitchen. Window drew wet leaf scent. Cups warmed hands. Sometimes she thought of wealth and smiled. Hers. A daughter grown honest and strong. In tough times, not crumbling or bittering. That wealth needed no alarm, no safe. One late fall, Victor brought a toolbox, asked what to fix. Grace pointed to the flickering chandelier. He removed the shade, checked contacts carefully, stripped old tape, installed new block. Light burned even and pure. "Thanks," Grace said. "Useful." "Glad," he replied. Important for him to do with hands, not words or promises. He got it late, but got it. December, yard iced. Kids slid on cardboard. Snow creaked at entrances. Claire came for 3 days. Brought Mom a warm scarf, practical, no frills. "So it doesn't blow through," she said. "You cold in that coat?" Grace asked. "Fine," Claire smiled, added. "Real things last if cared for." They laughed, watched the window, then wrote the administration about yard clearing. Tractor came on time week later. Neighbors glanced, shook heads. "Works," they said. "If you don't stay silent, write, right, and timely." Summer. Claire took days off, stayed with Mom. They canned compote, sorted currants, mended old tablecloth, tossed extras. Victor brought early apples from market, didn't judge others' choices. Learned to come on time. That knowledge cost no money. Cost attention to another. One evening, the three sat on the entrance bench. Air smelled of warmed wood and dill. Victor said simply, "Grace, thanks for Claire." He said it calm and true. Grace replied without pomp, "Thanks for coming to yourself." They sat silent. Then Claire explained to neighbors proper meter installation without gifting yourself to shady installers. People listened intently, liked no shouting or belittling, just explaining by law. By fall, new asphalt dried in the yard. Kids drew chalk. On the third entrance wall, a neat board with service numbers. Before, papers flapped on tape, torn by wind. Now, on sturdy screws. Hank hung it, said proudly he fixed more than cars. Claire smiled, shook his hand. Grace set tea, called all to the kitchen. Their small kitchen filled with people and soft hum again. Corner held a box of muffin tins. Grace hadn't baked new ones yet. Claire winked. "Tonight," she said. That evening, Grace touched her life's main thought. A person values not by others' money or signs, by what they pass on. Patience, decency, word-keeping, labor without noise. That became the foundation her grown daughter stood on. When Victor returned, he tried comparing. Comparisons lost power once reality entered their yard. SUV, just a car. Suit, just clothes. Words, just sound. Deeds stayed deeds. Sometimes Grace recalled early years post-split. Feared not future, but meaninglessness. Scared of senseless days. Then she made a simple rule. Every day holds at least one useful act. Cook soup, give a shot, call neighbor, sort papers, wash window, learn poem with daughter. That rule, simple, saving. Needed no inspiration, no special conditions. Saved from emptiness. Now, life aligned. She shared it with advice seekers. One useful thing a day. Don't demand heroism from yourself. It comes when small acts build. People nodded, faces calmed. Over years, Victor's gaze changed. Bravado emptiness gone. Awkward, recalling some words. He spoke simpler, sometimes silent, helped with hands, admitted mistakes without drama. Hard for him, but he persisted. Claire grew further. Colleagues respected, clients sought, neighbors trusted. She took Mom to a good doctor, insisted on full checkup, bought comfy mattress. Their home gained order beyond cleanliness, order of responsibility. Each did theirs, no shifting. In that air, poverty stopped being a mark. Became a stage, sometimes just a condition where people kept measure. If asked what breaking out means, Graced say simply, when your child doesn't shame your life or home, when in the yard knowing you in work robes, silence falls from respect, not fear. When X comes without bragging, thanks for the daughter, when evening kettle boils, and you know you did one useful thing today, the rest follows. The phone chimed on the table. Claire texted short, coming Saturday. Make pie for sure. Grace smiled, replied it'd be. She turned off kitchen light, returned to window. Below, Hank fed the dog. Ethel stroked the cat. Kids played tag. Dorothy Hayes argued justice on the phone. Town life flowed on. In it, Grace stayed a quiet, solid support. That sufficed.